So yes, we've heard a lot from the clients. I think it was a fascinating discussion, and so I'm glad that we now have some real all-star supplier marketers to talk about their opinions and give some war stories of what they've done, what's worked, etc. So starting from the end is Tom H.C. Anderson, who is the CEO of Odin Text. Then we have Ryan Berry of ZappyStore, and then Beth Rounds of Cambiar Consulting's marketing practice. So thank you.
Great to be here.
So let me just throw out a question to begin. How is marketing for a research company different from marketing for another business?
Want to go first, Beth?
I don't know that it's that much different.
Okay.
Okay, I think that it's still about understanding the why, and then knowing your business well and your customer well enough to say what's in the channels by which you market. So I don't think it's specifically that different.
Okay.
I completely agree. I think so often we go into meetings, marketing meetings, and talk about how much technical jargon we can put in our sales materials, our marketing materials. The most successful advertising I've done at ZappyStore is literally putting a banner ad on the internet that says, use ZappyStore, you'll be home in time for supper, and put a picture of dinner with a family. And because we overanalyze, I think, who our target market is. We're all people. We all make the decision between Nike and Reebok and Coke and Pepsi. And so I think we need to really simplify it and focus on our core.
I think, there are some differences, like the market that you have to consider. You have these $2 billion companies, and then you have these, $500,000 companies that can compete for the same customer and either can get the job. Very different, and of course the customers kind of tend to be more introverted. So there are certainly differences that you want to keep in mind. But that said, marketing is the same, positioning and so forth, pricing.
So we had the panel of clients earlier. Anything jump out in terms of what they said in terms of your own experience?
It was an underwhelming insight, I think, for me. I heard the word vendor get tossed around way too many times. And I think we all need to change that perception. I don't sell hot dogs. I sell a valuable service. So our industry needs to step it up so that we are viewed as partners. But from a marketing perspective, we need to earn that. So I got some advice once from somebody. The first outreach to a company can't be, can we talk for 30 minutes about how we can be strategic partners? Because they don't know you. How can you be viewed as that? But that was a very big insight by some very forward-thinking corporate researchers that we're still vendors. And if I do nothing else in my career, I want to change that tone.
I am just back at Cambiar. We're a management consulting company for the research industry. And prior to that, I was 2 years, both part-time and then full-time as a COO of a firm in Atlanta. Brian was one of our partners. And one of the things on that one, anytime somebody in my company called themselves or talked vendor, even with their vendors, they owed me $5. So we ended up trying to change that culture because I don't want to be called a vendor at all, and therefore I didn't want them talking to them. I think the only other thing I would say is that I've probably, and I don't want to say my age, but I'm older than some of you in the room, and I remember being at a company, was based out of Minneapolis, that we had a customer council, which I think is also a really good idea for if you can have that in your company. And I remember Larry Mock, who was the head of all of Procter & Gamble's research, was on there, and we were talking about this issue. How do we market to you? And he said, in that point in time, it was all print materials that people were getting. So let me tell you, so there was a big pile of stuff on this desk, and he had a wastebasket, and it's kind of like the delete comment. He went, he shoved it in, and he's put it down in. He said, I don't look at any of it. And so I think the comments around busy, don't look at, is just really important to understand that we're wasting money if we're doing it that way.
So I kind of tweeted during the other panel that these people are lying to us. And if you think about market research,
some of them are still here, right?
Yeah.
You guys were awesome.
I know 3 of them. I just talked to Edwin, and we were trying to remember how I got to know. like, was it through a cold call? I'm not sure. He said, no, it wasn't. And I'm sure it wasn't now. But we do cold calling to some degree because it works. And if it didn't work, you guys would never get any cold calls at all. But I think the problem with marketing research is we believe that customers tell us the truth when in fact they lie to us all the time. And if you looked at actual behavior data instead of asking people, I looked at the panel video from last year, and the client panel said the same thing. Don't call me on the phone. Don't send me email. Well, that's how marketing gets done. So we have to take it with a grain of salt, and what we really have to understand is how to punch through that, because of course you can. You can get through via telephone, and that's why people hate it so much, because that's one of the best ways to get through if you're persistent, arguably. I mean, it's just one out of many, but you have to use them all.
It wouldn't be a panel without a healthy debate.
Yes.
I have, so we've been extremely fortunate at Zappy Store. We've grown the business almost 2,000% in a year. I have not made a single cold call and don't plan on doing it. And now I think there's a difference. I've made a lot of phone calls. And one of the other key insights that I got from the panel, but I think intuitively, I hope most of us already knew, is relevance. So if I want to talk to somebody, and anybody on my, I do have a sales organization, if they want to talk to people, they need to do their homework before that meeting. They need to know what new products that company just launched, what advertising did they put out that failed. If we're going to go in and invest the time and the money and the resource to meet with somebody, we're going to make it worth their time and ours. So I make a lot of calls, Tom, but I just don't do them cold. I think that's.
I wasn't advocating cold call only strategy by any means.
Right.
But if you think about, somebody mentioned quirks also. I mean, quirks. I mean, a lot of any of the conferences, TMRE, the others that were mentioned. If you think about the clients that we've had in the past and so forth, a lot of them are totally focused on their industry, their brand, their company, and could care less about market research stuff. Some of them have maybe they're brand managers, and customer insights is just one little new part of their job. But they're not going to ever get reached by anything you put in an ad in those, or if you get a list or whatever. So you need to have that part of the strategy too to reach these people, or some other way of reaching them.
And I would only make one comment. I think you may be correct on that you've made cold calls. I think that if you're a full service research firm, I don't think that works. I think that that's very difficult. If you're a specialization,
right,
the cold calling could work. So I think it also depends on what your products and services are that you would have that could get attention. The point is you've got to get attention.
Yeah.
And if you have something that is going to really solve a problem, and I think you have a business that solves a problem, then I think it's a little easier. I think it's a little harder for a full service salesperson to say, hi, I'm from X, and I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to be added to your supplier pool. I think that's hard.
Yeah, I think that's true. But I mean, I remember years ago when I was at TNS, we had a couple of BD people who did that, strategically colding
years ago
into
I don't think it works now, but.
Well, the problem is breaking through the noise. I mean, unless you're a company that has a very clear value proposition, the days of my custom shop does better research than the other guy.
Yeah.
It's not we have a former head of insights on our board, and I talked to her a lot about our marketing, and she's like, as soon as somebody tells me that they're smarter than the other guy or gal, I stop listening.
Yeah.
But that's a challenge in an industry where 10 years ago, 90% outside of the data collection companies were custom shops. You'd come to us and you'd tell us what your problem is, and we'd articulate a perfect solution for you. And I just think there's way too much disintermediation these days for that to live.
Agreed.
Let's get a little more specific. What are some examples, both positive and negative, of marketing that you've either been involved with or seen? So some just egregious examples and some awesome examples of marketing, specific marketing campaigns or tactics that you've seen.
I can share a massive failure.
Okay.
So I had this. So we're a Zappy store. Companies can put their research products on our site and do research fast. So I said, wouldn't it be cool to do a Black Friday rush to Zappy store? And we'll target the 50 companies in the US that we want to work with. We'll send them a handwritten note, which, Edwin, you didn't respond to. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't reach Edwin. I'm totally teasing. But we'll send a handwritten note that says, the first 50 of you that rush to Zappy store, you're doing a project for free. I did not get a single response. And at the time, my boss, Steve, and I were saying, this is going to be great. What a cool idea. And it literally didn't work. And it didn't work because free wasn't enough. we didn't give them something to respond to, because everybody can offer a free piece of research. So we won't be doing the Rush to Zappy Store project again, but we have learned if we are going to try to give projects a way to show our value, that there's a different way to position it than just come and get it, because nobody's going to do that.
But you know what I like about that story, though, is that you tried.
Yes.
And I think there's probably a few people in the audience who would take inspiration from that and say, well, we haven't tried anything new in a while. Let's just experiment. I mean, what's it going to hurt?
Yeah. I mean, we've been a little lax in email campaigns, but I think obviously they work and you should try them. And it's very easy now to A/B test. But the thing is, usually A/B test is a little different, time when you mail it and how you position the subject line, etc. And we noticed little changes mean little to no significant impact in your A/B test. Obviously, you guys maybe know that already. But you have to take chances, and we've seen differences between 25% to 45% open rate, depending on if you do something a little bit more different. But still, we're talking about, in the end, 1% to 2% clicks after open. So it's hard to get through the wall of marketing there.
I think the theme is much more about kind of how do you build the relationship with your current client. Two examples. I know of one firm that I admire very much. It's in Michigan. They have established a customer event every summer and really invest a lot of their marketing dollars in that versus the pay-to-play conferences that they're not getting the return on. So they have spent more time with that, bringing in special speakers, asking those customers for themes and what they'd like to hear, and that's been going very well because they have a strategy of how do they get more wallet share of their current customers. So I think that's one. The last company that I worked with, where I actually went as interim COO of that company, we were asked to, we were in a supplier group, got the top honors for the year with this supplier, with this corporation, and they were going to do a vendor fair. And they had a procurement person who was working with me, and so I said, in my experience, those things don't really work really well. What of the 7 people that are really going to share anything because you're amongst your competitors? And does anybody really interested? And you're nodding with me that this is it. So I said, well, here's an alternative that I think could really work well. A little self-serving, but I said, how about if we come in? And instead of that, you have, over the next 2 months, you have your suppliers come in for half a day and have them specifically talk about some things. And then you can interact with them. You can even talk to us. So he said, oh, that's a really good idea. And we've fleshed it out more. I actually kind of created the agenda to our advantage. He loved it. They loved it. We didn't do a PowerPoint. We did it in Prezi because we knew what we were doing. We had a standing ovation. So again, it's more about how do you build relationships, how do you share the case studies, do it in a closed environment so that it works really well, get the interaction, and then you can go at the end of the day, the second part of the day, go on and start talking to people and saying, I want to talk to you more about that. So that really, really worked well.
Great. I think, listening to the client panel, one of the things that I thought made sense was that they are truly interested in better ways to do things, and they will probably take more time to read about things than customers in other industries might. So I heard, Ryan, you're going to be doing some more content marketing, you told me during the break.
Yep.
We've done that traditionally. We're going to be doing more of it. I run a text analytics software firm, and we're going to be blogging about text analytics tips, me and a couple of my colleagues. And you think about, how much should I share? This is IP, and we don't. But you have to just put more of it out than you're comfortable with, and you also have to take positions. So I've talked about how I don't like a lot of things that are happening in social media monitoring, and sometimes people think, you can't use that software for social media monitoring. Well, yes, you can, but but the flip side of that is, so there's some confusion there when people think, oh, Odin text can't be used for social media marketing. Yes, it can. Coca-Cola is using it and so forth. But I take a position and I say, a lot of this social monitoring isn't cracked up to what it should be. And then when I run into clients, say, I appreciate your honesty. That's true. Mm-hmm. And then they trust you more when you do tell them what you think.
Right. I think telling the good, bad, and the ugly is really important.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Really is. Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned the cringing at the term vendor. How have we done overall, or what could we do better, I suppose, might be the better question, in terms of positioning and marketing what it is we all do, be it market research, insights, or those allied fields?
It's obviously very thematic for this day, but it's the same thing we all tell our customers to do. We all tell, Edwin and Tina are telling their internal marketers, we need to be clear, we need to be consistent, we need to be direct, we need to own what we own and don't own what we don't own, right? You don't see ESPN publishing anything about the Republican debate because they own sports. If I own Quick Research and he owns Test Analytics and Beth can help market research companies scale, let's own that and let's only talk about those things. And so I'll be the first person if a customer calls us with, hey, we want to fit this project into your mold, to say, nope, here's 10 other companies who do it better. And if we're that honest, the phone rings a lot. I think the other thing is we've been an industry that has chased projects. Vendors chase projects, right? So it's not a surprise that we get called vendors because we're bidding on projects, whereas if we give ourselves more credit than that and try to be more holistic in how we can embed, I think it's a better story.
I think also playing off of that, a lot of times in marketing, we get, and this has been talked about before, we talk about the process. We've been project managers for so long, which is like your project managers. So we have this slide that shows once we get your study, then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do the coding, and then we're going to tabulate your results. And who cares? Right. Versus how is it that we're going to bring that story to life for you to take to your inside? If we start talking more about what we're delivering and the impact that we can have, and talk less about the inside or the back office or how the sausage is made, I think that we would be less likely called a vendor.
I just on a phone call with somebody talking about digital media, and she said she was in a meeting with an ad agency, and they were in the coveted boardroom. They were there, exciting. And the gentleman that she was in the meeting with spent his coveted time at the boardroom using technical jargon of how he was going to do it. And it's like, if we're going to get the audience, I think it's table stakes to assume that we're going to do a good job and it's going to be impactful. So it's like, what is the decision? What are we going to get out of this? Not how are you going to do it? I love that.
So how do you, when you're marketing a research brand, how do you balance the marketing of that company's brand versus the individuals in the company? So, Tom, you're a great example. You're pretty prolific on social media, but then you have your brand. How do you balance that?
Well, I mean, for me, it's easy since I'm the CEO. I can say sort of almost whatever I want. And then I have Facebook.
And have, yes, I was going to say.
Which is refreshing, by the way.
Yeah, it helps. And that's why corporate blogs have failed, because they get to, once PR and legal takes a look at it, there's nothing of interest left anymore. And that speaks to the industry, where you have to think, it's a game theory, right? What are my strengths as a smaller company? How can we compete against a $2 billion company? And that's a strength. Whatever you say about TNS or whatever, they can't really say anything back. So you can do that if you want to do things like that. But of course now we're looking to partner with market research companies, so we're changing strategy again. Yep. But we talked about, I think somebody mentioned earlier, or you said don't talk about things like politics and so forth. So yeah, don't talk about that on LinkedIn and Twitter and so forth. But Facebook, I mean, I have a Facebook page. At first it was just friends, but now it's over 1,000 on Facebook. A lot of them are clients now. But that's me unplugged. And if you happen to friend me, then you're going to hear my political views, like it or not. Hopefully you'll agree with them, and then we're going to feel we know each other better, and we'll probably get more business that way. If you're totally opposed to what I believe, then chances are I won't be doing business with you, but I'm willing to take that, out of the whatever 500 or so on Facebook. So I think you can be broader and you can be more personal. Just realize different channels are different opportunities.
So, and I think Beth actually brought this up when the four of us were emailing about the panel. It is different depending on the size of your company, the makeup of your company, who your audience is. So I have the benefit of working for a startup. So like you, I can do whatever I want. If it fails, cool, we'll try something else. What we've been trying to do is not just give Zappy Store a name, but to give everybody in our company a name, because ultimately, if somebody in the room does business with us, they're not going to be working with me. They're going to be working with Damien, who sits in Boston. So we encourage all of our people to do the same thing that I would encourage everybody to do, which is take risks, have a voice. Of course, it's going to be on a Zappy Store letterhead on our blog, but put something out there. So one of our guys wrote a really punchy piece about a topic. Creativity and data don't need to be enemies. The war's over was the name of the piece. And it wasn't a ghostwritten piece for me. So it was a nice balance of trying to get our people to be famous while our company gets famous. It's also, a lot of companies, you'll just see the PhDs on the website. We have our interns on our website. Everybody, and because of that, everybody's bought into the concept. So if you ask, how many times do you guys sit around with your companies and ask, what do we do here? And you get 10 different answers. I think it starts at that level internally to get everybody in the company to have the same concise message, which I hope we can maintain.
One of the things we're going to be talking about later in one of the talks is sales and marketing alignment. So I want to ask you about that. Ryan, I particularly want your take on that because you're overseeing sales and marketing for your company in the US. And so how do you ensure that your marketing efforts and your sales efforts are going to be in concert?
Well, I believe that the days of just being a salesperson ended a long time ago. There used to be media salesmen who'd come into JWT and cater a lunch and they'd build a book of business and then they'd go play golf. So what that means is if you're going to be carrying a quota and building a business, you need to know what the hell you're talking about. So we merge sales and marketing at that level. So every single person, whether they're in client excellence, which is our customer service group, or in sales, needs to intimately know what our products can and can't do, what our competitors do, the state of this industry. And we have weekly meetings of, one of what I would call a competitor just raised a bunch of money. We're talking about that. So everybody is really in tune. So I think what it's done is it's made the sales part natural. Right. So it's not a forced, hey, can we get your business type of thing.
I don't know how it is at Zappy Store now, but as companies grow to a certain point, the person who's selling is not going to be the same person who's sending out the emails. So I guess I'm looking to how do you?
Yeah. We were talking about this at the lunch hour, is that for the most part I've been more in the product marketing or marketing side of things in sales, but I've also had those functions come together. I think where I've seen it work really well, and I've tried to institute this in whether I'm consulting or I've actually been in charge of that group, is getting the marketers to get out there. It's just unbelievable to me. I go into clients that the marketer hasn't been to a conference, hasn't been out to see a client, doesn't run the customer experience surveys that are done. And so I think getting the marketing team closer to the customer, I think is critical. And if you're in that function or you're managing it, your people need to be out at the MRA functions others so that they can really understand it and understand the customer. I think that's one. I think that Dana and I worked at Greenfield Online when the year that went public, and one of the things I was doing as head of marketing there was to really align to understand what the sales force was really needing from me. So I've always taken that also when I've consulted, is also getting the marketers to really spend more time with the sales force and the sales force to understand all the things the marketing team is doing. So I think it is more that integration. And then, and like you say, I think everybody needs to be thinking about the customer and what's going on and not have a box, even though you have a function you're in.
Okay. Well, again, I think it's dependent on product and so forth. So now we're in the software business, and of course, investors would love to see everything automated. all customers just coming to your website and hitting the buy button. So of course that's a bit of the goal. I think some of the things I heard on the client panel was, we would like to talk to somebody on the phone that knows their stuff. And I mean, I personally try to get on as many of those calls that are booked as I can, and I think that's helpful. But of course, the best kind of, well, it is an inbound, educated lead, and that's why the content marketing works, the drip marketing, the relationship building that may take, if you have the luxury for the long game, 4 or 5 years, and not worry about it until then you've planted a lot of seeds, and then when you do have that conversation, it's much easier. So, and it's easier to turn that into automated process. So that's been our goal.
Just a quick point on sales versus marketing. I also want to fail fast. So if I'm in a meeting with a corporate researcher and in 10 minutes I know they're not a mobilizer, they're just going to take orders from the brand manager, they're not really going to shake it up, I very quickly end the conversation and focus somewhere else. Just like if you're a corporate researcher and you're in a meeting and you know the supplier's not a fit, you're going to go back to your email and start typing. And I'm really allowing my people to do the same thing. If somebody is not a fit, I'm not going to ask you 10 times, why aren't we working with this company yet? Why aren't we working with this? Because we'll reevaluate that over time, but I think that's also, and it could be viewed as a challenge for a company like mine who has VCs who want the business to go high quickly. But it's all about working smart, I think.
It seems a part of that would be keeping track of all that information. Make sure you're not sending emails to a company about a product that they don't want.
Right. Exactly. So Salesforce is great if you use it right, but it's a garbage in, garbage out dynamic. I mean, my last company, we had way too much of an investment behind CRM, and we didn't put any data into it, and so we never made decisions. I just got an email today with our entire pipeline, where it all sits by lead, by product. It was in a dashboard on my email, which is extremely helpful, not only to manage the business and forecasting, but we need to spend more time building these types of solutions. It's helpful.
Well, let's open it up to questions. Right here, John.
Hi, thank you very much. And by the way, this conference has been terrific, and you're adding a lot to it as well. So I have 2 questions. One is kind of, we could talk about it for a really long time, but I want to hear your point of view. And the other is more specific with regard to the marketing issue. In my lifetime, I've heard people on our side of the fence talk about the fact that we didn't like to be called suppliers. This goes back. And in fact, we wanted to be called vendors of all things. So now you're not even referring to the word suppliers, although it was used a lot today, but you want to be called partners. So hi, I'm your partner in research today. I'm not sure how that can really work or how you want to dedicate time to that, how you make that happen. But like I said, that's the one that can go on forever. The other has to do with the nuances of marketing. We talk about our target audience. Our target audience on this side of the fence is multiples of people, right? It's not Frito-Lay. It could be a research director there, a manager there, a marketing person. Maybe it's a smaller company and there's no research staff, and it's a marketing person. So in terms of marketing and using your dollars and your time efficiently, how do you sort that out to make your message relevant or have a relevant message for that individual, whether you're using print or digital or whatever? So that's the question.
Well, I'll talk first to it. I mean, because we came out of a full service to now software, so it's very different. But I'm going to answer that question as if we were talking about full service market research, because that's, I think, most of this is about. And partner versus supplier. I mean, a lot of market research companies out there, and this is very true of the big ones, it's very much about, yes, what can we do for you? Let's be as nice as possible. A client really wants to work with a partner, and the way that they know they're working with a partner is when you're telling them what they need to know.
Yeah.
And that may not be, sometimes it's not nice. You're not saying, oh, we'll do anything you want. No, you do it this way. We are the experts. That's why you're coming to us, and we're going to do it this way. Do you want to do it this way, or do you not want to do it? And if you answer that way, you're going to be partners with them. And that's what they want. And yet there's all these companies that are doing it the other way. And say, yes, we'll work 100 hours doing it a bunch of different stupid ways, and then finally we'll cut them around and do it our way. Yeah. That's not the way to do it. You burn through your margins and so forth.
So, Joan, I don't know that I would say, oh, I want to be your partner, I want to be your supplier. I think it's just a mental attitude, right? To me, I don't use that language, I think, with the customer. I do it in the way I act, right? Mm-hmm. I think that if for me internally, when I was at CMI and we had this thing around a vendor, then I think that mentally people were thinking themselves that way. And to me, a vendor is commoditized other. So to me, it was more of an internal discussion versus me talking to a big company about, oh, I want to be your partner. So
one aspect is how we define ourselves.
Yeah.
And the language that a company uses to address it, when you think about going through the purchase order system.
Right.
Company, everybody's a vendor.
Yeah, right.
But you didn't use the word consultant. In other words, if we're putting ourselves out there, do I put myself out there to say, I'm a consultant, I'm going to be consulting you, as opposed to saying, I am.
Certainly. I think it just depends. I think it will, and it depends on what your business is. I think of you and your business as having a very consultative approach to a specific problem or issue that clients have. To me, again, it kind of has to fit with what kind of business you're in and how you maybe then explain or talk about it, because a lot of people can call themselves consultants.
Yeah.
I prefer expert personally if I had to choose.
Yeah, so I don't think about on a day-to-day what do I want to be called. It's more, to me, success is when somebody hasn't, so we're an automation shop. When somebody wants to automate something, I'm the ugly mug that pops into their face and they call us. So Beth and I used to do business together. When she wanted to streamline that part of her business, the call was made. We had an honest discussion with our sleeves rolled up where we talked about a bunch of stuff. So I think, and now that is earned, and we're always all going to be positioned as vendors until we bring something to the table that changes that. So I'll share a story with you, and I guarantee you half the people in this room got the same brief. There was a brief in an Excel file that showed 20 different business questions. How would your firm go about doing it? From sampling to programming to methods to analytics. And it was my second day. And it got thrown to me, and it was due, and partly because I didn't have time to do it, but partly because I wanted to take a stand. I went through it, and I said, if you want to talk about automation, we'd love to talk to you, but we're not going to respond to this. And I did that on 20 different slides. Nothing happened for about a month, and this Fortune 100 company called us and said, we'd love to bring you guys in and talk about how we can change this. And at the time, my boss is like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm happy to be able to share it that way because it wasn't our core competency. So why would I try to fit myself into a box that I had no business being in?
Other question? Right here.
I wanted to ask about measuring success. You were talking a little bit about You were talking a little bit about, hosting a client event or, client retention and relationship building, and that's certainly an important part of marketing alongside new business generation. But, when I'm thinking about, if I can do something really creative that doesn't cost anything, great. But when I'm talking about spending marketing dollars, it's really easy to measure the success of something that's new business related. But how do you measure the success of something that is client relationship building and retention related? I mean, cross-selling products, again, easy. But, when you're spending or trying to pitch to the higher ups that we need to spend a lot of money on XYZ, and then after you say, well, these people already spend money with us, they're spending about the same as us, we consider that a success, just love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think the people that I know that have done client events have very strong relationship with their customers, and they have the ability through their solution array to add more to the party. They've got some new things coming out that they can then, again, increase the wallet share. To me, we haven't really talked about this, but you got to start with what's your strategy for your company, right? And for that company, wallet share is a huge piece of their growth. and less about continually customer acquisition, although they have a very strong viewpoint in how they go and get new customers, okay? But they have a very big wallet share goal. And so for them, anytime I've seen that, and you've got some things to talk about, it's worked just really well. So I think it depends on your company and what your goals are. So does that help a little bit? I know that company grows 10% a year, and their strategy is mainly on growing current business.
I think with online, obviously it's easy to look at conversions and clicks and that type of thing. But if you think about it, you can think about any business that way. You know, how many, looking at the pipeline, the lead pipeline, and how many calls you have, how many turn into whatever meetings, conversions, and then if it's something like what we're doing now, an annual license, then at the end of that 12 months, how many are renewing, and what is that worth, or upselling, and then anything you do then to improve on, you mentioned retention, you're going to have statistics for going back now, you know, what the retention rate is and how many fall off. And then if you do something, you'll be able to hopefully tell sooner than a year as new customers decide whether to renew or not, whether or not the program you implemented is having an effect, hopefully.
So unfortunately, we have to move on, but thanks, Tom, Ryan, and Beth.
For having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Beth.